Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Hey, Dana, what's going on with you?
Hey, not much. Just working this week and knocking some things out. And actually, I'm going to go to Charleston on Saturday and Sunday to see my family and everybody. So kind of just getting everything situated. What about you?
Awesome. Well, I am in Branson, Missouri, in our nice little cabins, getting ready to kind of put a contract together to build 12 more of our cabins. So got a busy day, but I'm real excited about our guest that we have today. So let's go ahead and jump in. And Dean, if you would, why don't you just kind of give everybody a little bit of background about you in real estate? I've known Dean Jackson for a short period of time, but I told him that we would become fast friends because we're like brother and sister from another mother. So
that's
Dean,
the truth, isn't it? That's so great. Yeah, thank you for having me. I was, I can't believe how fast time is flying because I was just realizing that last year marked 30 years since I started in real estate, at 12 years old. But seriously, at 21, I got my real estate license in 1988. And 30 years have gone by, and I was really, I've had two big loves throughout that lifetime, and it's been real estate and marketing, and specifically the intersection of those two things. And so it's been a grand adventure. I've gotten so much cool stuff that I've had lots of experiences in applying my love for marketing to real estate. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I got in, I guess, 2 years before you. So I was barely a newbie when you were getting in. And I, like you, also gravitated towards marketing to build a real estate business when, quite honestly, most people were just really pushing prospecting. And yes. I know you have a little bit of background, even with like the buy referral stuff. So kind of speak to that. And then I'd love to hear.
Yeah, sure.
I think you've got so many geniuses. We could probably have you back on this podcast many times, but specifically, I think for the realtor, if we could talk a little bit about your teaching that before, during, and after unit.
Absolutely. So that's the thing, you talked about prospecting. That was the big thing that when I was getting started, I would make 100 cold calls a day. That was the way that you did it, right? And I was good at it, and it worked, but it was just soul crushing. I didn't enjoy it at all. I had to start playing games with myself to get myself to do it, right? Like I would have to, pretend that I had a radio show and I was required to be on the air from 10 o'clock till noon. And I would have this little, red light above my office thing that I would be on the air, and I had to rush to get on the air. And those little games worked for a little while, but it was still a hamster wheel at the end of the day. I would make all these calls, I would get busy, and then I would reward yourself by not making the calls because anything would be great to take you off that track, right? Like, oh, the info box is empty at your house. Oh, no problem. I'll be right over.
That's so true.
This is more important. I'm servicing my listings. I'm working with my clients. I can't put that first. And so I realized that it was a hamster wheel, and that as soon as I stopped doing it, the business would slow down or stop, and there was no leverage in it. And then when I discovered marketing, I really fell in love with that, just from the idea that you had total leverage. And I remember the first mailing that I did. Well, let's back up for a second, because the first mailings that I did were personal promotion. That I was getting to this evolution that I'm going to work smarter and not harder, and I'm going to start using some of my money to leverage the thing, because I was doing all these sales but still didn't have a lifestyle, right? Because I was still on the phone for 3 hours a day, plus doing all the business that it was generating. And I thought, I'm going to start leveraging, and I'll start sending postcards and running personal promotion stuff to get my name out there. And what I found was that you get your name out there and you start to get famous, but it's not people calling you to come and sell their house. It wasn't generating any leads. And then I fell into this direct response advertising, where I would learn how to put words on postcards or words in ads that would get people to call me, to respond. And so the first thing that I did direct response wise was I took I made some postcards with a business reply card on them, and I mailed them to apartment complexes in my market and offered them a book on how to buy your first house. And I mailed them, and I remember pulling into the office one day, and Joanne, our receptionist, she could see through the window, and she was waving something above her hand for me. And I walked in the office, and she presented me with this little stack of these business reply cards with a rubber band around them. Oh. And I remember that moment, like, I still get that giddy feeling in my stomach, because I knew at that moment that I would never make another cold call again. And I haven't. You don't need to now, right? I had a way to get people to call me. So I had 11 replies that first response that came in. There were more over the following days, but that first 11, instead of making my cold calls, I started calling these people, and I connected with 6 of them that first evening, and every one of them was friendly. They knew why I was calling. They were interested in buying a house. These were like good prospects that I would have to call for a week to find those people. But on the path to them, I'd have to put up with being hang up on and somebody yelling at me and talking to a lonely old gentleman for 30 minutes. Just, you get into these long drawn conversations and all this stuff.
So let me ask you a question about that, because I've heard, direct response marketing a lot, and a lot of time, I guess that first marketing didn't work because there wasn't even a call to action for the other.
Exactly. I was just putting my name out there.
Right. So, and that, that's building a name and an image, not getting business. So I'm curious, where did you learn? Did you actually go dig yourself into learning direct response marketing?
Yes, absolutely. All at the same time, I discovered Jay Abraham and Gary Halbert and Dan Kennedy, all kind of one leads to the next kind of thing. And that led me to all of the, all that long history of direct response, Claude Hopkins and all the old masters. I mean, I really took to it like a scholar. I was really a student and am a lifelong student. I've been spending 30 years. I would have like quintuple doctorate in marketing by now if that was available.
Yeah. Gotcha. So is that what led you to kind of create your before, during, and after?
Because then
in Canada, you teach realtors all the time. This is kind of
absolutely. So what I realized in that process is that there's we as real estate, we really have 3 businesses that we're running, and I break them down into what we call the before unit and the during unit and the after unit. And so the during unit of the business is all of the part where you're doing the work of working with sellers, working with buyers, you're out finding them homes, you're selling their house. That's where all the busyness is in the business. Then the before unit, if you think about it like a separate business from your during unit, that acts as a supplier to your during unit, right? You imagine that if you ran a business that all you had to do was find people who want to buy or sell, and you didn't have to actually do the work. You could just deliver them to the front door of your during unit. And imagine if you're the benefactor of this or the beneficiary of this, that you've got your during unit, and all you had to do was just go to the front door, and there were constantly people who said, let's get my house on the market, or we'd like to buy a house. That's really where, that's what the benefit of having a before unit could be for you.
I love looking at it as that's a standalone business, because I just kind of lump it in with what we do, and that doesn't give it the same attention that it would if that
what
was
ends up happening is that it always ends up taking second or third place, because
Yeah.
the during unit is always number one. That's where all of the money is perceived, and it actually happens there. But that's where all the emergencies are. That's where all the urgency is. Nobody has a before unit emergency,
Yeah.
right? There's no after unit. And the after unit of the business is the part that nurtures lifetime relationships with your clients and orchestrates referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a whole process of overlaying metrics on those to see where you're doing. In the after unit, one of the things we measure is what we call your return on relationship. And so everybody knows by face, by name, 150 people at least, right? That's you've got a top 150. That's what all the research in evolutionary psychology and all that stuff says. We can basically maintain a relationship with 150 people. And that means that if you saw them at the grocery store, you'd recognize them by name and you'd stop and have a conversation with them. You have a position in their life. And that what we do in this is to manage your relationship portfolio, that 150 people, for what we call a 20% annual yield. And what that means is that that group of 150 people should be able to yield 30 transactions for you over the course of 12 months. Now, everybody has this happening in their business. If you just take somebody, even though they've never heard or thought about the idea of an after unit, if we just take their top 150, they have a top 150, whether they've written them down or whether they're communicating with them or doing any kind of outreach to them. They've got 150 people that they know, and they are getting or not getting repeat and referral business. If you look at what happened in the last 12 months in anybody's business, and we overlay this on top of it, let's say they got 5 repeat and referral transactions out of their top 150. We divide that to see what that number would be. So what is 5 out of 150?
5, you mean percentage wise?
5 divided by 150 equals a 3% return on relationship, right? So that means that whatever you're doing right now is managing your after unit for a 3% annual yield. Mm-hmm. Now that number, the reason that's an important number to know is because it gives you a standardized metric for comparison among agents that if somebody says, well, 30% of my business or 95% of my business is by referral. Well, that doesn't mean anything, or doesn't tell me anything about your business. It just tells me that, of the 10 deals that you did last year, 9 of them came from referral, but that doesn't mean anything in the context of what you're actually doing, because that 9 out of 150, you've got 150 people that you're managing. That is a much more useful metric, right? If I know that you're managing, if you're getting 30 transactions by repeat and referral, that means that you're managing at a 20% annual yield compared to my 3% if I'm getting 5. So that's a valuable metric for people to know, and it's very easy to move the knobs and dials that affect.
Well, what I love about that is, that's taking your database and the relationship to it to a whole different level.
Yes.
Most people don't really even think about, we are constantly trying to get our agents to make sure your database is, understand that it's your data bank. It's your asset. It's what you can use eventually to sell your business or turn it over to someone.
That's exactly right.
This is taking it to a whole new level where you're actually saying, this there's a way you can actually make it give you a certain return.
Orchestrate. That's what I say. That's why we put responsibility words around it. You're managing your relationship portfolio, which means it positions it as an asset. You're managing your your relationship portfolio for an annual yield. And that's all the responsibility on it. You're proactively managing it. And whether if you're not doing anything to stay in touch with people, or you're, periodically, maybe you send a holiday card or you send a calendar at the beginning of the year, and that's it. And you're getting a little bit of repeat business and some referrals. It's just, happenstance. It's nothing that you're trying to orchestrate there.
So what are the biggest mistakes you see agents when they come to you and say, "Oh, Dean, I love this and I need help with it"? What's the biggest mistakes you see they make in that before unit process?
In the before unit or the after unit?
Either one.
Well, in the after unit, first of all, for sure, it's that they believe that people refer as a favor to you.
That's
so
true.
they think that they're trying to get somebody to do them a favor when they refer, and there's a mental block. So you have to overcome that part of it first, right? The block that you have that says that people only refer because it makes them feel good. That's the reality of it, right? The reason that they refer is because this is going to sound weird, but it raises their status in the herd.
Mm-hmm.
If I refer something to you, if I make something happen that brings value to you, that raises my status on a really deep psychological level. And we look for those things. That's just like, all you have to do to prove that is look at social situations. If I recommend a book or a movie or a restaurant or something, or you do, and then you see that person again, you're waiting to see if they comment on whatever that was. Did you try that restaurant? Did you go see that movie? Or did you read that book? And if they don't mention it, you may ask them and you say, "Hey, did you read that book? Oh man, it was so good."
Yeah.
Then you get the squirts of dopamine and you puff up and you feel good. That's your reward, that they acknowledge that you brought that good thing in their life. And now deep down, they owe you something.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird the way that our psychology works on that. But
it's exactly
when we realize
you
that,
create beholdenness, and beholdenness is the strongest motivator that most people overlook.
that's exactly right.
People can't stand until they give me something back.
That's right. That's why we're so resistant to it. That's why if I say, and you look again at social situations, if I say to you, "Linda, hey, would you like a cup of tea?" The first thing you're going to say, "Are you having one?" Because if you're having one, I'll have one, but don't boil the kettle for me. Yeah, we don't want to put anybody out. And that's the same thing, like in your before unit, when you're communicating with people, we say to people, if you've got any questions or there's anything that you need help, please feel free to email me. We're hoping to put the initiative on them, right? That we can react to them asking for help, and we really want them to. But it's the equivalent of me sitting you in my living room and saying, "Hey, Linda, I'm really happy you're here. If there's anything you want to eat or drink, there's lots of stuff in the fridge. Go ahead and help yourself."
Probably not going to happen.
Our mothers would not allow that to happen, right?
So true.
But if I go in the kitchen and I come out with a plate of freshly baked cookies, and I come right up to you and I say, "Hey, Linda, would you like a cookie?" You go, "Oh, these are delicious," right? It would be almost impossible for you not to have a cookie because you don't want to hurt my feelings by not having them. I clearly prepared them for you.
So how does that translate to a realtor?
So when we look at, if we're trying to, in lead conversion, say, we're saying to somebody, if you've got any questions or there's any way, anything I can help you with, please feel free to reach out to me, is very different than anticipating what's going to be the trigger that somebody would really appreciate. What is going to be the trigger that gets them started on looking at homes, let's say, right? So that means that they're either going to be one of three types of people. They either want to just go out and start looking at houses, or they're going to be someone who wants to get educated on the process before they do anything, right? They don't know how it all works, so they want to make sure they get the process right. Or they may be worried about the money part of it first. They want to get all the money organized first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we know that those are the three most likely, next steps for people, rather than just saying, hey, if there's anything I can help you with, and hoping that they'll say, hey, would you show me some houses? Make it easy and say, whenever you're ready, here's 3 ways we can help you. We do a daily tour of homes at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock. So you can jump on, if you want to ever look at homes, join us for a daily tour. That is the equivalent. We're boiling the kettle at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock every day. And it makes it easy for people to say, oh, can I come on the tour on Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different, and even though it's a personal tour, it's not like this, you're not getting a bus or anything like that. Yeah, you're just saying, it sounds so much like you've already baked the cookies for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Or people, maybe they don't know about the process. So you say, join us for a home buyer workshop. On the first and third Thursdays of the month, we do a home buyer workshop at the library. You can get all your questions answered. We go through the whole home buying process, and that makes it easy for people to get their questions answered without feeling like they're putting you out or feeling stupid for not knowing the answer to them, right?
That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. So we just start thinking and anticipating those things.
Yeah. And then, of course, the more you do that, the more you learn from the feedback from the people, and you can tweak it and make it better. And
that's right.
Wow. What a great way to look at that.
Can I just say that my new favorite thing is not being the smartest person in the room. Like, I have just taken almost 2 pages of notes.
Wow.
haven't even been able to form a question because I love being able to write all this down. So
that's funny.
Thank you. Although one just did spark. This sounds a lot like what we say to agents, that they get so busy working in their business that they don't work on their business.
That's exactly right.
And which is in what you call the during unit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just sitting here thinking, though, Dean, if somebody has been doing this for years and they're like, man, I have all these people and I do all this marketing and I spend thousands of dollars a month on marketing, but I'm not actually, 1, measuring, or do I have the metric, and 2, I'm not getting the referrals that I want. What would you say would be like the first place for them to start?
So it's being honest and looking at overlaying their business with this before, during, and after model, and saying, how is your before unit doing? If we say that the purpose of your before unit is to find people who want to buy and sell a home and deliver them to your during unit. Okay. So when we look at that and we say, how much are you spending right now on marketing? What are you doing to get leads, to generate leads, and how are you doing at converting those people into appointments? And how much does it cost you to generate a transaction from your before unit? Most of the time, people, when they're not dividing it up, all they're looking at, they know their top line, they know how much GCI they did, they know, maybe, hopefully, they know what their bottom line is because that's what they pay taxes on, but they don't have a sense of how all the numbers worked out to get to that net and where that business is attributed. They might say, well, 90% of my business comes from referral or whatever that is, but they're spending 100% of their budget on the before unit, right? When they're not converting any of these leads.
Yep.
Or they're spending money to get their name out there, but they can't point any business to it. So being honest and looking at it and seeing, how are we doing? Now in real estate, the good news is that there's an established sort of norm, right? If we say, how much would you cheerfully pay for a guaranteed listing? How much would you cheerfully pay if somebody said, can you come over and list my house, right? If that's all you had to do, you didn't have to run ads, you didn't have to find the time to do any lead conversion or do anything like that. If all you're doing is taking those, most of the time there's an established norm of somewhere between 25, 30, 40, maybe even up to 50% for some people, it would make sense that they would gladly pay 50% of the transaction just to have to pick it up at the drilling unit and actually just work with the people that are ready to go and in the process right now. And that makes sense, right? But when you look at that, if I said to people, we mentioned Linda by referral, Joe Stubb, but we used to do big real estate seminars. So we'd have 600-800 people every month. And I would have people, would give them an idea and say, imagine if this was at the time, imagine if, say, Apple was going to open up a new division in your city, and they were going to send 50 executives into your town, and they contacted you and said, we'd love to work with you. And what we want is that we're going to send one of these executives every week for the next year. And we want them to come and look at homes. We want them to find the one they want and make an offer by Friday so they can be back home with their, back in Cupertino on the weekend. And would you be happy to work with Apple on that basis? And of course, everybody would. And I said, no, there's just one thing. Apple has a relocation division, and all they'd ask is that you pay a 30% referral to the relocation division. How many people would still be happy to do that?
Yeah.
And everybody is absolutely, they would be thrilled to do it. And some of them, I would joke that if they were at the seminar from out of town, how many would be willing to move to Dallas to do that, right? Yeah. And some of the people would, yes, I would. But then we look at it, the reason that they're happy to do that is because it's a guaranteed thing, is you're going to get a big check and you're going to send a smaller check to Apple. Mm-hmm. Now, I said, if we did the math on that, if you had that, the average commission is $10,000 on that you're going to make $500,000 on those 50 transactions, and you're going to pay $125,000 of that or $150,000 of that to Apple, you would be happy to do that because you're still left with a lot of money there.
Yeah.
But I said, how many people would be confident enough in your marketing that you'd send the check to Apple first, or you'd write the check for 125 to get the 500? And everybody's hands come down because nobody's confident enough in their marketing to get to that point, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what the before unit is all about, is developing something that you have confidence and statistics, and that every time I put in $1, I'm getting $5 or $3 or $10 or whatever it is back. Mm-hmm. And then amplifying that.
Yeah. Mm. So, hey, Dana, do you remember the statistic that we learned, I guess, at, was it Family Reunion last year or Mega Camp? The number of agents that did not even have the complete information in their database. Do you find that, Dean, when you?
Yeah, I find that most people have to bump up to 150. Even if I can get people to start out with a top 100, mm-hmm. like certainly everybody, there's no excuse to not have 100 people.
Yeah. I think it was 6%. It was less than 6% that had a full name, phone number, email address, and home address.
Yeah.
Which is shocking. So, Dean, let's say somebody comes to you and they've got 1,000 people in their database. Do you just have them pull out the best 150 and do this?
What I do, it's interesting. I had exactly this situation. The guy had them all in a binder, printed out, like, 30 on a page, the line item, like the Excel, the data export. And I sat him down and I got a pink highlighter. And I said, I want you to go down this list. And then when you come to a name that you would recognize them if you saw them in the grocery store, and you'd stop and have a conversation with them, I want you to highlight that person. And so I gave him the thing. He started going down the page. And almost, past halfway, he started laughing because he hadn't recognized anybody yet, right? And that's one of the big things, is confusing a mailing list with relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And is a big difference between a relationship and a mailing list. And there's a place for a mailing list, but it's in your before unit. Your after unit is about the people, for sure, who should be on there is anybody that is in the house that you helped them buy. Should definitely be on your list there, because you're de facto the incumbent realtor for them, right? You're still their realtor. Even if you've lost touch with them for a lot of years, you're still their realtor. And they've just lost contact with you. Number two is everybody that you would recognize and have a conversation with in the grocery store, even people that you would not necessarily think to market to. That's a problem that comes with the feeling like people are doing you a favor, that they don't want to market to their friends. But it's not about that. It's, if you reframe it, that you're giving your friends and your family and your insiders, the people who know you, you're giving them the inside track to bring good things into somebody's life, right? That's really the thing. It's like, if you think about it, if you owned a restaurant, you own the best sushi restaurant in town, and everybody that knows you, if they were to call you and they had friends from out of town coming, or they recommended the restaurant, you could roll out the red carpet for them and make them feel great, and you would be happy to do it for them, right? And that would make them feel good, because you know what it's like to go into a place where you're a regular and you get acknowledged and recognized. That's really what we're looking for, is for your clients and the people to know you feel like they've got an inside track to real estate.
Yes, absolutely.
They've got an insider.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to know about that house? Let me get that information for you. So they can know, they can text you and get the info right away. Yeah. Oh, you're going to be selling your house? Let me text Linda and get her How to Sell Your House for Top Dollar Fast book to give them. Yeah. You're giving them opportunities to be good to the people that they love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to have one caveat here, Dean. I'd have to have pictures, and I get to qualify if I recognize their face but can't remember their name.
No, I get it. But that's the thing, is you'd have to, and that's the challenge, is that people, when you're prompted, you can do it. But the real relationship is, if you don't recognize them by name, you don't really have, or if you don't recognize their name by their picture, you don't have a relationship with that person. How many times have you run into people at the grocery store, you don't know what their name is, but you recognize them, you know, hey, you, how are you doing?
Yeah, I have the best
how's
way.
Everyone? How's your mama and all?
Introduce them. Introduce them.
Right. The best way of looking like
I'm so sorry. This is...
Yeah,
you introduce them to the person that you do.
Or
you introduce
the person
them
with me says, look, if I don't introduce them right away, you say, hey, I'm Jim McKissack. What's your name?
Right.
Perfect. You see?
But it's funny though. I think this can go both ways, because I had a coach one time tell me, when you're picking your top people, to think what they're thinking. Are you just a realtor to them, or are you the realtor to them? Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
If you go through the list that way, it's kind of hard to. I mean, because everybody knows 6 agents, and then their mom's an agent, and their cousin's an agent, and everybody else.
That's exactly right. That's why we want to do that, right? Yeah. And so I would say to people, what we're trying to do with those 150 people is to establish a brand. And I look at brand differently than what most people look at it. I look at brand as an acronym for what we're trying to establish in people is a BRAND, a buying reflex affecting now decisions. That when somebody thinks about it's time for us to sell our house, their reflex, I got to call Linda.
Yes.
That's good.
I had a coach tell me one time that, Linda, you'll know you've built a good brand when you go to the grocery store and you stand in front of the produce section and somebody doesn't ask you where the kiwi is. They actually ask you about real estate. And I always tell this funny story, Dean, of when our daughter graduated from college, we all went to Hawaii to celebrate, and we go up to the stand at a spa at the Grand Wailea, and we step up there and we say, hey, we're the McKissacks, and we're here for our spa day. And the lady puts her pen down. She looks up at me and says, Linda, McKissack, real estate. She goes, you sell real estate in Denton, Texas. I thought I was going to fall out. And I thought, dang, Howard would be so proud of me. I'm not even in the grocery store. I'm all the way over here in Hawaii, and they know that.
That's awesome.
So absolutely. That's a great point. So, Dean, we're almost out of time here. Is there anything I would love for you to tell? I know you guys have a great program in Canada. I assume you can help people in the U.S. too with your programs and stuff that you have. And to be honest with you, I'm going to go to one of Dean's programs that we are going to talk more in depth about the before and after December 9th, 10th, and 11th in Orlando. Isn't that correct, Dean?
That's right.
Yeah. So,
yes.
So what would be some options if somebody says, man, I really resonate?
So the best place to start, Linda, is I have a podcast called Listing Agent Lifestyle. And that is the best place to start. We have a book called Listing Agent Lifestyle that kind of starts off the process, give you an idea of what we're talking about. And then the podcast is all examples and people who are, working through the process of establishing this listing agent lifestyle in their business. So each week I do a different, anybody can be a guest on the podcast, but we brainstorm and talk out and lay out a listing agent lifestyle plan for them that goes through that before unit, the during unit, the after unit, helps them in the elements of the listing agent lifestyle, which are getting listings and multiplying their listings and getting referrals and converting leads and finding buyers. And then the 3 lifestyle elements of having daily joy, abundant time, and financial peace. So all of those things combined are what we use to establish the listing agent lifestyle. And we actually have a scorecard that you can evaluate on your listing agent score.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, I would love for our guests to join me, if there's any room, Dean, on December 9th, 10th, 11th at your, is it called Blueprint Breakthrough? What is it called?
Breakthrough Blueprint, yes.
So if anybody's ready to do that pretty quickly, then reach out to Dean and sign up for that. And I'm going to tell you, Dean, I really think we could have talked for so much longer. I want to get your public permission that you'll come back on and we'll get to drive this conversation even deeper.
Of course. Yeah, it's my favorite thing to talk about. We need a trifecta. We need the trilogy, 3 episodes.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, there's your commitment that we're going to have you back on. So if you have a question or a comment or a topic that you'd love for Dana and I to talk about on everything life and real estate, remember to submit it to info@lindamckissick.com or reach out to us on Instagram at hashtag everything life and real estate. And if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and maybe have Dana and I help you with a situation, opportunity, or challenge that you're being faced with in your real estate business, just submit your name to info@lindamckissick.com with a brief description of what you'd like to talk about and what you'd like our help with us. And remember, the more information you give us, the more we're going to be able to really help you in that opportunity. So thanks for joining us today. And Dean and Dana, we'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.